let's talk about the only ways to make a narcissist respect you. Okay, so to understand how a narcissist is going to respect you, you have to understand the concept of narcissistic supply. It's exactly the only thing that drives them, that feeds them. It's like heroin to them. It's like a drug to a drug addict. They can never get enough. It's a black hole. But one of the things that you have to understand is this is a concept I've kind of figured out by dealing with them myself and also studying this a lot. And that is that there's a hierarchy of narcissistic supply. So there's like the grade A diamond level supply. And then there's what I call the coal level supply. It burns, it gives them energy, but it doesn't, it's not as good as the diamond level supply. The diamond level supply, they'll do whatever they need to protect, maintain, defend. It's like they have this like unspoken constitution to like protect it, like as if it's their country or something, right? I mean, they're very patriotic to themselves. They will do whatever they need to protect grade A supply, which is things like image, how they look, how they look to people they respect, how they look to maybe new sources of supply, something like that. So the best way to get them to respect you is tied up in that concept of narcissistic supply. And you're going to see what I mean here in just a minute. So 6 ways to get them to respect you. Listen to the end because I'm going to give you the best one last, of course. All right. So number 6, and then we'll go up to number 1. Number 6 is you need to stay a bit distant from them. Because if you get so close to them that they know your weaknesses, that they know that they have you, that they have some level of control over you, then they won't respect you as much because they're testing you constantly. And even, at the beginning, they're constantly testing you. And by the way, I have a whole video on this and why narcissists test their victims. You should definitely check that out. But in the beginning, they're testing you to see if you're going to be a good source of supply. So stay a little bit distant from them if you can. Sometimes they're hard to spot early on, especially if they're covert. So, but just remember, if the little hairs on the back of your neck are sticking up and you feel it in your gut, it's probably you should listen to that. All right, so that's number 6. Number 5 is to stay independent financially, stay independent emotionally. If you can kind of stay in a place where you don't need to be with them, you're not hanging on them for everything, then you will be better off. In fact, I was just talking to somebody this week that was saying that they're in a relationship with a person who is trying to get out of a relationship with a narcissist, and that person has been completely supported by this guy, doesn't have any skills, hasn't been able to work for a long time. And so now she's going to have to try to figure out how to get some skills, how to get out into the workplace, and how to start making money for herself. And if you stay financially independent, if you stay emotionally independent, they will respect you more. They will tread a bit lightly for you on that. All right. So that's number 5. Number 4, we are making our way up to number 1 here. So stay tuned with me. All right. So number 4 is to continue to have something of value that they want. So whether it's prestige, whether it's that you have a certain amount of influence, if you are a name of some sort, maybe you're a celebrity, maybe you are high up in a corporation, maybe you are an influencer of some sort that they very much respect, they very much want to be attached to, they will continue to respect you because they love the optics of being your friend or hanging out with you, or that you could potentially, give them more supply in that way. I mean, if they're continuing to get supply from you from that, they will continue to respect you. So if you want them to respect, honor, and value you, give me a respect me in the comments. Yes, like Aretha Franklin, baby. Yeah. All right. So put respect me down in the comments. So number 3 is if you're in a position of control over them, they will definitely respect you then, such as the judge, if you're in a divorce case, or a boss or a CEO or some, even if it's a dynamic where you're in a particular group and everyone in the group respects you more than other people, then they will respect you. They will hang back. They will not, use their little bag of tricks, their coal level supply, which is devalue, debase, degrade. And so they won't do that as much if you are in a position of control over them. There's some reason that they need to look good in front of you, that they need you to be respecting them. So that's number 3. Number 2, we're almost there. Number 2 is let them believe that you aren't onto them, that you respect them, that you value them. I talk about bartering sometimes, like, oh, can you take care of this QuickBooks reconciliation? You're so much better with numbers than I am, something like that. So, number 2 is not letting on that you know who they are, letting them think that you are still respecting them, that you're giving them that adulation that they so desperately need and so desperately crave. So that's number 2. Number 1, you ready for it? It's actually kind of counterintuitive, but it is the truth. Be self assured, confident, authoritative. They respect people like that. They're looking for people that they can control, that they can get supply from. And if you're not that person, then they will respect you more. And by the way, when you start shifting the dynamic in the negotiations, instead of being afraid of what the backlash is going to be, understand that they will start to panic. And that's a good thing. You want them to do that because that's how you're going to start to shift the dynamic and you're going to start to shift the balance of power in that negotiation. All right, let's talk narcissists. Let's talk about the 5 ways to command respect from a narcissist. And I'm going to work backwards from number 5 all the way up to number 1. How can you command respect from a narcissist? A lot of people think narcissists don't respect anybody, right? That's not true. They do respect some people. The number 5 thing that they respect is confidence and people who are self-assured. I say all the time, they don't attach themselves to you initially because you have so little value. They actually attach themselves to you because you have so much value. They like to see people who are super confident and who are super assured. And then once they do attach themselves to you, it actually gives them a feeling of more power to devalue and break down somebody who is confident, who is self-assured, because that makes them feel more powerful, by the way. The more confident you are, the more self-assured you are, the more they do respect you. So if you are that way, they will respect you more. They will command a sense of respect from them. And I do have a whole video called This is the Only Way to Get Respect from a Narcissist. And I do talk more specifically and more pointedly on some of this, and you might want to check out that video as well. So number 4 is keep emotionally distanced from them. Now, this is more difficult if you're already in a relationship with them. This is where you're going to want to start to emotionally distance from them. If you're already in a romantic relationship with them, if you're already in a business relationship with them, if you're already emotionally close to them, this is where you're going to start to decondition yourself. I don't know if that's even a word, but you're going to start to kind of pull back. You're going to start to put those boundaries in place. You're going to start to move in a different direction, or even just stop the conditioning. I kind of, in my mind, start thinking of it as righting the ship, moving it in a different direction, kind of turning it around so that you're not constantly on the defensive all the time. You're going to start to be on the offensive. You're going to start to show them that, hey, there's a new game in town, that this is not how it's going to go anymore. that you are taking control of yourself and your life, and that you're no longer allowing them to have this power over you. And so you're going to start to be emotionally distanced from them. Your soul is no longer going to allow it anymore. And it starts kind of with these little whispers. Your soul starts to say, excuse me, no, this is not okay. And you start to sort of start to feel it, your gut is telling you this is not working for you. If you want more help on how to keep your cool against narcissists, I do have a whole video on how to keep your cool against narcissists, and it will definitely help you. So make sure you check that out. And I do have a whole playlist on self care when it comes to narcissists. Definitely check that out as well, because you do need to take care of yourself if you are in a relationship with a narcissist as well. So check out that whole playlist as well. And you can stay in control. Just start with mantras. Put in the comments right now, I'm in control. I'm in control, because you are in control. Just start to believe it. Start to have that mindset that you are in control, because you are. They don't have power over your soul. They don't. No one can help you if you don't believe that you can be helped. Just know that for sure. Okay. So that was number 4. Now we're going to move on to number 3. Number 3 way to command respect from a narcissist is to maintain your independence. So, so important. Now, if you are already in a relationship with them, again, starting to put those boundaries in place, starting to look for ways to start to create your independence. If you are not already in a relationship with a narcissist, or you're starting to get into a relationship with a narcissist, this is when you're going to go, I'm keeping my independence financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, in every way that you possibly can. But if you are in a relationship with one already, this is where you're going to start to look for ways to start to have your independence, even if it's just, I'm going for a walk today. I'm going to go take a yoga class today. I'm going to go do something just for me today, whatever it is. I'm going to read a book on my own, start a gratitude journal, start doing some things for yourself, start having some self-care for yourself, whatever it is that you need to do to start having that stuff for yourself. Okay. So that's number 3, maintaining your independence. I love the concept of the July 4th thing, that Declaration of Independence. You can kind of declare your own independence, even if it's just in your own mind, where you're just saying to yourself, you know what, I'm declaring my independence for myself. And what does that mean to you? And, when I have people do my SLAY program, which stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you, one of the very first parts of strategy is creating your vision. And so many times with people, it's like having this vision of what it is that they really actually want is so foreign for them, because they've spent so much time, and maybe this is you, just defending yourself against narcissists. It's so many years. It's just defend, defend, defend. You just feel like you've been a turtle on your back. You've spent so much time sort of finger pointing and going, they're doing this and they're doing that, and oh my god, and you're just like, you've been assailed so many years by this person that you almost forget. It's almost foreign to you to go, wait a minute, what is it that I want? What is my vision for myself? What is my perfect life? or you almost feel guilty asking for it, or almost feels strange to ask for it or think about what it is that you want. But if you don't think about what it is that you want, you are certainly not going to get there. You have to almost think of it as a GPS, like, where is it that I want to go? What is it that I actually want? Your GPS can't take you where you want to go if you don't program it. The GPS in your car, it doesn't know where you're going if you don't put the destination in. And it's the same thing with your vision. So, maintain your independence, figure out what it is that you want, and then program it. Okay. That's number 3. Number two is set those strict boundaries. Actually do it. Create boundaries, set them. It's almost like set it and forget it, right? Create them, set them. That's the next way to really, really command respect from a narcissist. I know it's scary. This can be really, really scary if you are in a relationship with a narcissist. They will have a tantrum because they don't want you to set those boundaries. But it's sort of like a 2-year-old having a tantrum on a floor. When they have these parents who've been indulgent or whatever, because they think that all they have to do is scream louder, scream longer, and the parents are going to eventually give in. And that's what happens with narcissists. They're essentially toddlers in adult bodies. They think that they have you conditioned to a certain extent and that you will give in eventually if they just have enough of a tantrum and act a certain way. It's sort of like terrorist tactics, right? And so they want you to be afraid of whatever that backlash is. But honestly, the truth of the matter is that if you set those strict boundaries and you stick with them, that they will eventually give in. Okay. Which brings me to number 1, the most important one, the one that really, really will command the most respect from a narcissist. And that is show them that you are not afraid of them. The narcissist is way more afraid of you than you are of them. I promise you that. And they are getting supply from jerking you around, manipulating you, and all of that. They love to see you squirm. They love to trigger you. They're getting supply from that. They get off on that. They get a high from that. They enjoy it. They love the whole thing of it. And the fact that they're able to do all of that means that they're getting somewhere with it. And if they can see that they're no longer getting supply from it, if you can cut off that supply source and they get nothing more from it, then they will no longer want to be there. That's how they really, really will move on down the road. And that's how you will command the most respect from that narcissist. Hey there, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I'm an attorney and I help people negotiate with narcissists. And if you want a narcissist respect, I'm going to give you 8 ways to get it. But there are things that you've got to stop doing if you want a narcissist respect. Number 1, you've got to stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. You've got to stop enabling them. I know that it's hard because, especially with the fear factor, if you're dealing with a narcissist, they expect things. You've been conditioned by them. If you've been in a longer term relationship with them, they have been getting a certain amount of what we call narcissistic supply from you, and they expect you to do things for them. I mean, you're kind of like sometimes like their janitor in a lot of ways. They expect you to be a certain person for them in this relationship. And even if you resent it, even if you don't want to do certain things for them, they kind of have set things up in a certain way. You kind of have to do certain things for them as you think. But if you enable that behavior, then they no longer respect you. You've got to stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. What happens with narcissists a lot of times is that everything is kind of optional for them, and you don't get that. You don't get everything is optional for you, but everything is kind of optional for them. You've got to stop that if you want them to respect you. And they respect people that they have to, kind of work for. You've got to stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. Let them know, no, I'm not doing that anymore. You have to do that. You have the ability. So stop enabling them. So that's number one. And I'm going to give you 7 more. And as we work up, it's going to get even harder and harder. You're kind of like dealing with a toddler. You know how with toddlers, they have tantrums, and with toddlers, they have to feel like they have to scream louder, scream longer, and they're kind of like giving the parents sort of the side eye as they're screaming, going, are they watching? Are they watching? Because if they're watching, they're seeing if they're going to get that thing that they want as they have the tantrum. Maybe I just need to kick my legs this time. Maybe I just need to throw things this time, a little bit more of a tantrum. That's what's happening. But if they don't get what they want, then they actually start to respect the parents. That's what you're doing. Okay. Stop doing things for them that they can easily do for themselves. That's number one. Number two is you've got to stop seeking validation from them. Stop putting yourself down. Stop going, oh, yeah, I'm not very good at that. I know I'm not really all that smart, or stop caring what they think of you. Stop looking for their opinion on things. Just go, you know what? I can do things on my own. I don't need your validation. I don't need you to believe in me. I don't need you to think that what I'm doing is a good idea. I don't need you to think that I'm smart or I'm attractive or that I am good at what I do. A lot of times I've seen women especially want to start a business or start something new or, whatever it is. And, whoever it is that's their significant other will say, oh, that's a stupid idea, or you're not very good at that. And, in fact, I actually was just having a conversation with somebody recently who just said to me that, she had been an actress or something like that. And her significant other said, you're not a very good actress. But, here's something that's interesting. She ended up becoming a writer instead because this person said to her, you're not a very good actress. So she ended up doing writing, and she ended up winning all sorts of awards because this person said that she wasn't a good actress, and she ended up becoming an amazing writer and winning all these awards. But you know what? She kind of got the better of him. But she really needed to just not listen to the guy anyway, because here's the thing. People only treat people the way they feel about themselves, and narcissists don't like themselves, and that's why they treat people poorly. If somebody feels good about themselves, then they treat people well. If somebody feels poorly about themselves, then they treat people poorly, so you can't take it personally. So stop seeking validation from them. Stop putting yourself down. Stop caring what narcissists think about you. They actually respect people who don't care what they think about them. Okay. So if you want the narcissist respect, stop thinking what they care about you. By the way, if you're trying to negotiate with a narcissist, they're not going to want to negotiate or communicate or whatever with somebody who's like constantly putting themselves down. They're going to want to try to negotiate with somebody that they respect. So the more you start laying this foundation now, better it's going to be for you as you go through this process. And by the way, I do have a free negotiation worksheet for you at crushmydeal.com, which you should definitely get. So it's a free 15-page ebook, and it will definitely help you. And I upload brand new videos here on this channel every single day. And you should definitely subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell if you haven't done that already too. All right. So the other thing that you should do, the next thing, the third thing, and we've got 8 things here for you, is stop trying to be someone that you're not. One of the things that scares a narcissist more than anything is authenticity, because they are so fake all the time that you being an authentic person is, something that really throws them off. They don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with authenticity, genuineness, you being who you are, you standing up for yourself, you respecting yourself, you loving yourself. Those are all qualities that they don't have. And, they feel empty inside. So you being who you are, standing in your power, is something that they will totally respect. So stop trying to be someone that you're not. Number 4, stop making excuses for their bad behavior. Just stop doing that, because you are actually ignoring their red flags. Then you're actually defending their red flags when you do that. So stop making excuses for their bad behavior. Stop defending them to others. When you say things to other people like they had a bad childhood, they had a stressful week, they've had a stressful year, they are just making fun of me because that's, a joke that we have between each other. It's okay if they put me down, because that's our joke. That's not okay. Stop making excuses for their bad behavior, because that doesn't make them respect you. That allows them a pass for their disrespectful behavior. Number 5, stop trying to control them. Leave them be. They're never going to be controlled. So you need to stop trying to control them. You need to control yourself. You need to leave them on their path. Don't allow them to control you, but you also need to stop trying to control them. You need to be in your path, in your world, and be independent, because that will allow you the freedom to start shifting that dynamic, right? Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. That's what I say all the time, right? If you're going to start pivoting, you're going to start shifting that dynamic. You want to start being on the offensive. You want to start to slay, which is my slay methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. Then that's what you have to do. All right. All right. Number 6, stop letting them manipulate you emotionally, which is stop taking that bait. Stop taking everything they say or do personally. As I said, people who hurt people who are hurt people. So when you say things like they make me feel bad, you are making yourself out to be a victim, because you are in that space of allowing them that power to say they get to dictate how I feel, and don't give them that power. Okay. Number 7, stop giving them your time and your energy if they're not worth it, because they're not. Don't try to change them. Don't say that, you can love them back to health, or you can, you don't need so much love. I've actually heard people say that. I didn't get that much love as a child, so I don't need that much anyway, and I have all the love to give, and I will be able to give them everything. You are going to just end up depleted. What happens with narcissists is they have this black hole inside of them. It can never be filled. They're like starving, gasping for breath, desperate for air. It's scarcity mentality to the extreme. And they're in survival mode all the time. And they have this black hole that can never be filled, and they want you to fill it, and while you might want to fill it too, it can never be filled. And so you're left feeling totally and utterly depleted, yet they're still starving, and so you're just exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And they're just like energy vampires, soul vampires, and it's not worth it. You'll never, ever, ever be able to satisfy that, and you'll never, ever, ever have your needs met. Ever. And you're so much worth so much more than that. And your soul knows it too. And it's in there screaming to get out. So number 8 is, if you really want a narcissist respect, this is going to be the hardest thing to do, but it's the most important. This is the most important step. You've got to walk away and never look back. So I want you to put in the comments right now, just walk away. Just walk away. This is the one thing. You are so committed to spiritual growth, more than most people that I know. You're so committed to personal development. You're so committed to change. You're so committed to other people's personal development and change. And you're one of the, and I said this in your intro, you're one of the most abundant thinkers that I know, meaning you, and I really try to be this way too with my friends and the people in my world. I'm so thrilled for my friends, and I really try to support my friends, and I love that about you. So I want to know, tell me how this evolved for you, and especially knowing that you've dealt with, well, I mean, I know we don't have, this is running a little longer than many of my podcasts, but, if you could tell us a little bit more about your journey in dealing with, toxic narcissists in your life, and then your commitment to spiritual growth and change.
Yeah, I think what I realized was this idea that I have to keep giving so much of myself in order to feel worthy and that I belonged, and that every success that I would have would mean that I'd have to double down to be more successful the next year, right? I have to excel. I have to get better numbers, better returns. And then I brought in investors, and I felt obligated to make sure I showed up. And so I don't know, I would say 50% of it comes from some very interesting personalities, and 50% of it comes from my own talk track that is not gentle and kind, or wasn't. And I got to a place where I thought, if the word success is such a powerful word. And I got, Ernst and Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Los Angeles. And then I was asked to go compete at nationals. And of all the entrepreneurs that were winning locally, I was one of 4 selected to go nationally. And you have to imagine, when I accepted my award, I was the only woman on stage with 22 other candidate participants, all male. So I think I just kept looking around thinking, okay, I feel weird. I know I feel weird inside. I feel a little awkward outside. And I have to keep going. I have to run and push hard to continue to perform, to prove that I'm here for the right reasons and that I can be successful. So hitting bottom in 2017 for me was after having unwound a marriage relationship, which I wouldn't call a marriage in the traditional sense. It was more of a friendship, co-parenting, cohabitation relationship. But because I had built a company that was almost 100 million in revenue at that point, and I had had a prenup, but that didn't matter because there are lots of LA lawyers willing to take the out spouse on as the client when they have a high net worth in spouse supporter, even if there's a prenup. So that was a whole Harvard Business School lesson on high net worth divorce and what it means to go through that. Do not recommend.
Yeah, I've been
um,
there. I mean, not from a personal standpoint, from a, as a represented in, divorces many times.
mm, do not recommend. And divorce is difficult for kids and all of those things. And LA is a special place for high net worth divorces because it means they take trash out of your trash bin, they follow you around and photograph you, they put things on the internet, and it's like next level. So that was traumatizing, I would say. And that was the year that I thought, gosh, how can you let someone like this into your life? How did you even allow someone like this to come in who has been now under the hood and has such a personal connection to you that you even have children together, even though there was an agreement and a way in which we were going to be raising our kids, and I thought we had an understanding. Lots of things change when money's made. So that was my first, like, wow, unpack how this even got to this place. And then part two of that was the business relationship with my business partner and realizing that we had outgrown each other and that there was really the need to sell the company. But without a buy sell agreement in place, that took about 18 months for us to figure out and was quite a challenging period of time. So again, asking myself the question, how did I let this person into my life with this type of dynamic? And I think it all roads lead back to me, or roads lead back to you, meaning it is absolutely incumbent upon me to open up and take a look at what do I allow, who do I allow in my life, and how do I allow myself to be treated that allows this behavior to be the outcome. And so I very much take responsibility for taking a look under the hood and saying, if you want different results, what do you got to do? You have to have a different approach because the definition of insanity is, right? And so for me, it was very much instead of pointing outward and looking outward and blaming outward, it was a multi million dollar experience that I had of outflows that I had to compensate for those decisions through financial decisions that ended up being, settlements, etc. But I would say that was nothing compared to the inner work of figuring out how do I want to move forward in my world and my life. And spirituality was a very important component to getting clarity for myself about how I was going to move forward in my life and what tools I was going to utilize to ask myself the question. Every time something happens that I don't like, I have to look in the mirror and ask myself, what have I allowed? What weeds have been growing in my garden that I have ignored because I don't want to pick weeds? I want to go play or I want to go do other things. What weeds have I allowed to grow in my garden that have now overgrown the garden? And now the tomato plants are dead and I have to go in and excavate. Yeah.
I mean, I like that because, and so many people are going to go, well, what about the other person? And the reason why I love the approach of what you're saying, and I want people to hear out what I'm saying, is because when you take responsibility, it also means that you have control. The flip side of that is that you're now saying, I have control of my life. The flip side is that you're no longer saying, I'm in victim mode.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And to be candid, and when I think back at reform school and all those wheelbarrows of boulders going uphill for 2 years and all the wood cutting and all of the digging of ditches, my whole story was, I'm here because I had a bad childhood and my mom was not the mom I had hoped for. And that was my 2-year story. Like, had I had a different mom, I wouldn't be here. And, my life would be different. Now my story is, had I not had her as my mom, I would never be as successful. I would never be as thoughtful, strategic. I can read a room like she can, like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
what a gift.
Yeah.
Because it was tough. I learned how to show up and speak up for myself because I had a switch that I could flip that told me when I was in danger mode, I better stand up and get right toe to toe with someone and not let them mow me down, because I know what that feels like to be mowed down as a little kid. I'm now an adult and I'm going toe to toe. And so I can go in and say anything, but I can say it from compassion, from love, and be firm and be feminine and be matter of fact and say, that's it. So,
I love it. So good. So for people who are feeling really powerless right now, and we've all been there.
oh yeah.
What would be the first thing that you would say to them? What's something actionable that they could do today?
You know, powerlessness, there are two things happening. One is circumstances that are your material reality in this moment, and that might be an abusive spouse, that might be someone who's hitting you or hitting you with words. The m- the the powerlessness comes from those external experiences, right? When those things happen, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, it rocks your world. But what I would suggest to anyone who's listening and saying, yeah, I'm in that situation and I just feel so bad about myself, I don't see any way out. I would remind yourself every single day of at least 2 to 3 things that you did really well that day. It could have been you rocked making breakfast for the kids, or it could have been that you got yourself out of the house and on that 2-mile walk to get outside and get some fresh air. Or it could have been that you were able to pick your kids up on time and make it home for the dry cleaner and all of the other things. Like, you've got to find 2 or 3 things that you can hang your hat on and go, I rocked this today, and give yourself back the accolades of what it means to be in your power, and remind yourself that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like, when I was sitting in that Fashion Institute class and I was sitting in the front row thinking, man, these people are going to figure out they let me in and they're going to push me out the door. And every time I'd raise my hand, I'd come home and I'd be like, I can't believe I asked another question and I got involved, even though my heart was racing. I was so fearful that they would think I wasn't smart enough to be there. And so those baby confidences, those baby steps, those accolades each day, I was like, I did it, I think, is where you have to start. You have to start with the little things.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think gratitude and then acknowledging yourself are so important.
Huge, huge. And it can just be like, I made some kick-ass lamb chops, man. My kids thought they were great. And I
Yeah.
tried a new recipe and they were delicious. Like, these little things, guys, this is what life's all about. These are, it's not the big, the launching of the book and being on this and that. All these things are just these major points in time, but it's little daily things that add up to the joyful, delicious, ripe, rewarding life that brings this texture and richness to each of us. It's like, and number two, I think the other thing that makes you powerful is realizing you got yourself in a situation, one way or another, you're in it. Accept responsibility and start to imagine and vision for the life you want next. Give yourself that hopeful, like, I see myself living at the beach in a cottage, and I see myself painting, and I have a different life and a different job, and like start visioning who she is next. I think that's your imagination is your greatest secret weapon.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Be it now.
Be it now. Everything you sit on, touch, feel, ex- explore, everything that you have in your life is as once was once a thought.
Absolutely. So beautiful. And that's the quotable moment right there. How to respond to narcissists when they disrespect you. They're constantly trying to bait you. They're constantly trying to get you emotionally riled up, and they know exactly what to say. A lot of times you've been in a romantic relationship with them, and so they know you. They know exactly what to say, and they constantly disrespect you. It's so, so hard when they're constantly disrespecting you, and you're wondering, how can you respond to them? And first of all, why do they constantly disrespect you? Well, they do it because they don't respect themselves. They hate themselves. Remember that people treat other people in a way that is a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves. Think about that. So you can't take things personally. And I've often said that one of my favorite books is The Four Agreements, which is a super easy read, by the way. If you haven't ever read it, you can read it in an afternoon. And it's 4 agreements that you keep with yourself. And one of the agreements is that you never take anything personally, because the fact that people treat people the way they feel about themselves. If people feel good about themselves, they treat people well. If people feel poorly about themselves, they treat people poorly. And so how they treat people poorly, they treat people, like crap, because when they do that, and they build themselves up, when they get that emotional reaction out of you, it gives them a high, it gives them a feeling of value. And so it gives them that supply, it gives them that hit. It's their drug, it's their food, it's their lifeblood, it's their oxygen, and they need an endless amount of it. It's really, really hard. I say when you're getting out of a relationship with a narcissist, you have to kind of start to pivot. You got to turn it all around, shift that dynamic, that power switch. And it doesn't happen overnight, because if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist long term, then it's baby steps. They've been conditioning you. And so you can't just go, okay, I'm going to switch it around. So I say, step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. You're switching that dynamic. And then you can, apply my SLAY methodology if you're negotiating with them. Strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you. But you can start by step 1. Step 1 is don't run. You put boundaries into place. So what's the first step? You just put some boundaries into place. One of the first phrases I love to use when narcissists are disrespecting you, or you're trying to just get them to be dispelled, to just kind of dissipate them a little bit, dissipate their anger. I love to use the phrase, I agree with you. You have to be careful, because if they're saying things like you're a horrible mother, or you're a terrible dad, or you're a deadbeat or something, you got to be careful, because you don't want to say something that's going to
they're going to end up using it against you in court or something. You make sure that you use it in this way. I agree with you that that's what you think, so they're disrespecting you. You need to get out of it. You just want to calm them down. You just want to get yourself out of there. So I use terms like I agree with you because they hear I agree and you're not agreeing to anything. The second one I like to use is I can see that you are upset. And I love phrases like this because you are actually now starting to remove yourself from the situation and starting to observe it as if you are a third party. That way you can start to see them for who they are. And that really starts to help your healing. It starts to get you on the path to becoming the more powerful version of yourself. You start to remember who you are. And number 3 is very similar, where you start to say things where you're just observing them, where you say, your approach is not working for me. Again, you're pushing it back on them. Your approach, it's not working for me. You're going to have to find a different one. You are the one who's upset. You are remaining calm. You are the steady one. It's making them appear to be the one who's the crazy one. You stay steady. Number 4, again, is similar in a way. You just say, okay, and just look at them. You say nothing. You don't take their bait. You just observe. Or you could just look at them like this. It's sort of like an okay, but like that. If you understand, give me a yes in the comments so far. You understand so far? Give me a yes in the comments. Number 5, you want to engage me in conversation, you will have to remain calm, factual, and non-emotional. You're looking at them and you're saying, hey there, buddy boy or young lady or whoever it is that you're talking to. You don't have to say it like that, but you're just basically, that's your attitude. You want to engage me in conversation, you will have to remain calm, factual, and non-emotional. You just stand there. And you are the one who is calm, factual, and non-emotional. Number 6, I know that you are hurt. You can say, I know that you're angry. I know that you're upset, or whatever words you want to use, however it is that you want to describe them. But that is not a valid reason for being disrespectful. So you can look at them, you can observe whatever emotion it is that you're observing, right? So they're disrespecting you, so you can observe their emotion. Again, you observing, you remaining calm. You're looking at them like as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. Number 7, if they're just completely and utterly disrespectful, or say something that is completely and utterly like personal or just ridiculous, you can just say, I'm choosing not to respond to that. That's number 7. Number 8, I'm going to have to ask you to respect my boundaries, especially if you have set down boundaries. You've already said, I don't want you to email me at this address, or I don't want you to use this form of communication, or whatever it is that is a boundary that they've decided to cross, and that's a disrespect to you. I'm going to have to ask you to respect my boundaries, because they will totally disrespect your boundaries. The next one is, I hear you, not saying anything. You're watching them, you're looking at them, and letting them have their tantrum. Just like you're watching the toddler having the tantrum on the floor. You didn't say anything. A lot of times just by saying, I hear you, they got heard, and that's what they wanted. The last one is, if we are going to continue to communicate, I'm going to have to ask you to speak to me, or write to me, or communicate with me, whatever it is, however it is that you're communicating at that moment, in a way that is respectful. If you are talking, you obviously are saying, speak to me. If you're having a text message, or if you're having an email, whatever it is. But if we're going to continue to communicate, it's going to have to be respectful. And then if they don't continue to communicate in a way that is respectful, you have every right to not continue the communication at that time. You do not have to stand there and be disrespected. You don't. And, I've been in situations with other lawyers. I've been in situations where I've had to take it. I mean, especially, with other male lawyers or whatever. And I've straight up said, I'm not standing here having this conversation with you. We can either wait until you're ready to have a conversation with me when you can be respectful, or we can take it up with the judge or an ethics committee if we have to. Sometimes you have to stand in your power, even when you're a professional. I'm telling you that you don't have to do this regardless of who they are, even if it's a family member. And you have to find what's right for you. You have to find what's right for your own mental health and your own sake and your own sanity and your own soul. I know that it's hard, but life is hard. These are the teaching times that we are in earth school as a soul. And, I'm telling you that if you don't learn this lesson, the lesson will continue to present itself to you. I've learned the hard way, but you can do this. You can do this with help, and you can do this with support. With the support of people around you. You can definitely do hard things, that's for sure. I have a private Facebook group, a support system, which you are absolutely welcome to join. It's Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. I also do have a sponsor on this channel. If you need access to therapy, I have an online sponsor, which is BetterHelp, which you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung to access that. And we receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to resources that we trust. And make sure that you have subscribed here and hit that notification bell as well. We want you to have access to as many free resources as you possibly can. The next video that I want you to watch is how to force a narcissist who's driving you crazy into panic mode. So if they're driving you crazy, you're ready to force them into panic mode. That's the next video I want you to watch. Honestly, and that's something that I recently just talked about. The dopamine that goes back and forth, between the love bombing and the devaluing. That's what actually causes that trauma bond too.
Well, exactly. Because we get addicted to the dopamine hit, and we're constantly seeking it.
Exactly.
And they're the supply. They are the supply of our.
They are the supply.
They have absolute power over our, over our fix.
Exactly.
Right?
And so you become addicted to them.
That's right.
So between the dopamine and the cortisol, dopamine, cortisol, you are so destabilized. You are a hormonal mess.
That's right. That's right. Because of them.
Yes.
Right. And it's so hard. But if, and this is why some of, what I talk about a lot, and I talk about in the book a lot too, is that I don't want to focus on them and what they're doing. And, is he a narcissist? Is he just an asshole? Is it abuse? I focus really, how do you feel? How do you feel in this relationship? Right? Do you feel destabilized? Do you feel like you're going crazy? Do you feel like you're always sick? Do you have brain fog? Right? Let's take the focus off of them, because first of all, we can't control them, and we can't necessarily, we can't take enough of a magnifying glass to them for it to make sense to us, because it doesn't make sense. But what we can do is turn that on ourselves and turn, put down the magnifying glass and pick up the mirror, as they say, and really look at how do I feel in this relationship? And, often the narcissist or the abuser will say, well, you just feel that way because you're fucked up. And ask yourself, have you ever felt like this in any other relationship? Have you, right? And sometimes the answer is yes, because we tend to choose, right? But I will say that the person I became in my marriage, I had never been that person. I'd never felt that way. I may have been in messed up relationships and other narcissists and addicts and all of the things, right? Because that was my history and that was my trauma. And I had never felt like this. And I'd never felt like that since. So there's information there, right? Um, and I also look at the other people, I ask my people to look at the other person, like, have all of their relationships been like this? Because usually the answer is yes. Like they have like a trail of destruction behind them. It's not you.
Right.
know?
Right. And so when you're asking yourself that and you think, okay, what's the first step?
Mhm.
Right. Okay. And now you think, okay, I do probably have to get out of this thing,
Mhm.
but it
Mhm.
scares the crap out of me.
Sure. It is. It's terrifying because they have made you believe that they are your air and water and the in overt or covert ways, usually more covert, like you don't have anything without them.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken away your sense of self and self-esteem. So the first thing that needs to be done is that you've got to get into trauma therapy, whatever you do, whoever you work with, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, it has to be with someone who understands narcissistic abuse
Totally.
and is trained
Which
in it.
is very rare.
Very rare. Um, and so you really want to make sure that, because, this is what, the sort of the legacy of couples therapy, right? Is that like, oh, we're going to take a neutral stance and it's both parties and blah, 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 blah. And abuse is not a relationship issue. It's not a communication problem. It's an abuser problem. So you need and I outline the work that I do with my clients in my book about really reconnecting with self, because we have lost it. We have completely lost our capital S self. And so there are steps that you can take. There are exercises that you can do that will help you reconnect with your sense of self, your capital S self. That is your authentic self. That is who you are at your core. And that's really important work. And I think that's the first step, really. And sort of once you start to feel stronger, right, you also have to disconnect from this person as much as possible. Now, sometimes you're doing, sometimes you need to do that work in order to recognize that you're in this toxic relationship, right? Because then it becomes wow, that doesn't fit, and you start to see a little bit more clearly. But with this like the trauma bond and the dopamine rush and all of the stuff, like you can't do the healing, you can't heal from the person who's traumatizing you while you're still being traumatized by them.
100%. But I will say, don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad about yourself if you're still in the relationship
100%.
and
That's right.
and you feel like, okay, I can't get out of this. What do I do? I mean, what I say to people is, okay, the very first step is the very first boundary that you can create is, and if this is all you can do, this is a really good first step. And that is, you can decide today that you can be spoken to with respect. And that is a really good first step.
Yeah.
Because,
And you can't control whether they're going to speak to you with respect.
no,
right?
but you can decide that you don't have to stay in the room. You can
That's right.
you can get up and say, what I say is, just start looking at them as if they're a third, like a child having a tantrum on the floor.
Right. Mhm.
Start looking at them as if, and start observing their behavior to them. I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. Just start observing their behavior to them.
Mhm.
Put an invisible shield down around yourself and
Mhm.
just like imagine that you have like Teflon on that, and just
Right.
say, we can continue this conversation when you have calmed down. And
Mhm.
you do not have to remain in a room when somebody is
yelling at you, screaming at you, disrespecting you. You just don't.
Right. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And I think, when I say disconnect from the person, you can disconnect from them while being in a relationship with them.
Yeah.
You can detach yourself, and it's a really hard thing to do. This is about, it's about radical acceptance. It's about really accepting who this person is, and that it is who they are. It's not who you are, it's who they are, and that they're not going to change. They're just not. And so if you accept that, and you, like you said, have an invisible shield, your Teflon, I think that there's work to be done to get to that point, right? It's not all that easy to just be like, oh, now I'm going to disconnect from them, right? There's a shift that happens, and it's a very specific shift from like trying to get them to change, or trying to get yourself to change, or trying to do something to fix it. From that to, oh, right, this is not actually fixable. This is what it is. This is what it is to be in a relationship with this person. If I can't leave them because of finances, whatever it is, right? You don't have to leave. But if you have to stay, the protection, the wall, the boundary between, like, oh, they're just doing what they're going to do, and they're going to keep doing what they're going to do. And so I can't control that. The only thing I can control is myself, which is walking myself out of the room, which is taking up my hobbies and going out, 3 nights a week, if that works, with childcare or whatever. But moving to that place of accepting, oh, this actually isn't going to change. So now I'm not going to beat my head up against a brick wall trying to get it to change. I don't need to do that anymore. So now I can just live my life. I can live it in the same house if it's safe for me to do so. Right. But but I think it starts with that acceptance of, and really, really, really understanding that, no, this isn't going to change. It's just not.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like the Arya Stark of like, not today, like,
Yeah.
yeah. And maybe I'm not going to leave today, but, not today. Are you going to be, like this with me? Not today am I going to allow this. It's sort of like the baby steps of it, just baby steps, just
Right. That's
baby
right.
steps. And I feel like it's so much easier for people to just baby step it, because it's like, oh my God, I can't leave and I can't move it, and that way it's like, okay, but maybe someday you might.
That's right.
But just for today,
Right.
small,
That's right.
just start looking at them as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. You're going to start seeing them in a different light today. Just baby steps, baby steps.
And taking each of those baby steps, like, if you can't leave, it's okay, but you can take those baby steps so that you don't feel stuck or stagnant.
Yeah.
Right? You can do things like have a consultation with an attorney. What might things look like? You can start to reconnect with the friends and family that you may have been isolated from, without, fear of reprisal. You can, like, there's little baby steps that you can take that feel like you're getting your life back, so you don't feel stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what the difference is between that and the situation that you're in now is that you are making a choice. Because at that point you're saying, you know what? I'm choosing today, instead of feeling completely stuck, I'm choosing to stay today.
Right. I'm here because I choose to.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's part of my strategy. Strategy. Not because I'm stuck, not because I'm manipulated, not because I have chosen.
Yes.
Strategically, that for today, I'm in this.
Yes.
and I'm going to use it to my advantage, or, or even not to your advantage, but at least not be like, you're not going to be destroyed for another day.
Yes, I have a plan. I'm choosing
Right.
it. Sort of like you get to take back your agency,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it just makes you feel better about it for that
Yes,
day.
that's right. That's right. And, look, there are some people for whom this is not safe, right? Because as soon as you start to take back aspects of your own life, there will be punishment. There will, right? But if it's the silent treatment, or being, side-eyed, or like if it's passive aggressive stuff, like that's when you get to look at them and be like, you're a toddler, and have a nice tantrum, I'm going out. And there are people for whom that is dangerous. And if there's any danger involved in this, I do not recommend it. And I think it's important to say that at that point, you need to seek the help of your local domestic violence shelter. I also like people think that a shelter means they have to run away and go and stay, like in Maid. You don't. Domestic violence shelters are full of domestic violence advocates. They will help you. They have legal aid available. They have people who can advise you in your area. So that's not just for people who are trying to flee. There's a lot more that they do. So it's important to, and it's important to know that they also don't just deal with physical violence. That's financial abuse, all the kinds of abuse that go along with this, they can help with.
Yes, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up. Both the fact that, to go get help if you need it, and also the types of help that are available, for sure.
Yeah.
And the thing is that narcissists are, there has been arrested development in the limbic system of their brain. And so, it is narcissism is a result of trauma.
That's right.
And so you do have to understand that when there is a shift in the relationship, there is going to be a shift back. And they have conditioned you, and you're basically going to be conditioning them back when you shift. And so it is sort of like, if any of you out there have children, you understand that when they had, when toddlers have a tantrum, what happens with toddlers is, they feel like, okay, if I just need to scream louder, if I just need to kick more, if I just need to, do this a little bit more, mommy and daddy, you're just going to give me what I want. And that's exactly what's happening with narcissists. So, they are the worst right before they're ready to give up. I mean, that is the truth. And so they will act a little bit worse and a little bit worse when you start being different, when they start feeling a shift in the wind. That's okay. That actually means that what you're doing is working. And that's actually a good sign.
Right. And like when the toddler screams and yells more and more and more is not the time that you give them the cookie.
No.
Right. If they want the cookie and they're screaming and they're screaming and they're escalating and they're escalating and they're escalating, good parenting, and we've all done it, right? But good parenting dictates that that's not the time that you reward the behavior. And so when the similar thing with a narcissist is that when they're screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming, that is not the time that we go, oh, okay, you're right, I'll stay. Or I won't go out tonight, or right. But again, when they get, they tend to abuse to the degree that they maintain power and control. And if they're losing power and control, that is when they escalate, and that's when it can become more dangerous. So it's, it's very tricky, and we do have to be careful. But also, if you know that this is not you're not in physical danger, then like this is not the time. I talk about this all the time with people telling their spouse they want a divorce, right? I lay this out very clear, lay it out in the book. I have lots of information on this, that they're going to have a temper tantrum, and it is just like a toddler, where you say, I know exactly what you said. I know that this is hard for you. I understand that this is not what you want. Unfortunately, this is my final decision.
Yes. And I'm glad that you brought that up too, because a lot of times the threats that they make during divorce are not,
They're not based in reality.
in any sort of reality.
No.
Any sort of reality.
Right. This is why I tell women all the time, and I talk about it in the book, like, go and get yourself educated. Learn what the laws are in your state before you have this conversation. Because when they say, I'm going to take the kids, you're never going to see them again, you can go, okay, that's not how things work, but I understand you're upset. Because so many women that I talk to say, well, he said he's going to take the kids and I'm never going to get any money. And I have to say, honey, that's literally not how it works. It's literally not how it works. And, meanwhile, they've stayed for another 5 or 10 years because that's what he keeps saying. Well, that's his abuse tactic. He's abusing you into staying by lying to you. Your job now is to get informed. You need to get information, actual legal information. Educate yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I just had this conversation with somebody recently who was concerned about getting certified in my certification program because they were worried that this person, the other narcissist, was saying, oh, if you get certified, then I'm going to use that against you because you can, I'll use that as proof that you are using that as a, what did they say? It was something with, you're using that to disparage me.
Mhm.
And they wanted to use that as proof of, I don't know, some sort of tort or something. And I said, they actually would have to prove actual damages. And, I said, you'd actually have to say something bad about her. And which I don't think you're actually going to do. And I said, and if you actually did, then truth would actually be a defense. And I said, but then she'd actually have to prove damages. And like, there's so many different
Right,
layers
there's
of that.
so many layers to it that, like,
And I said, when you actually break it down to what's so and what are the actual facts of that, it's all like they prey upon fear. They
Right.
prey upon fear.
They do.
And
They do. And they prey upon being the only one with information, pretend information, right? They bank on us not actually knowing the truth and the facts. And so your best defense is to actually know all the facts and information. I hear this a lot, and I'm sure you do too, with people who are scared to go to therapy or go on medication. Says that if I go on medication, then I'm scared to go on medication because then the court's gonna think I'm crazy. And I'm like, or you look like someone who is responsibly taking care of yourself. I was like, in today's day and age, like, we're not really not going to court over someone getting on, Zoloft or
Lexapro or whatever.
Lexapro, like whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
We're not like, that's not, judges like literally do not care about that. In fact, it looks like you are, but like, I don't want to go to therapy because then I'm going to no, go to therapy. You look good.
Yeah.
Go to therapy because you look like someone.
Everybody's in therapy these days. I mean, come on.
Right. And if you're not in therapy, frankly, I think that's a problem. So, and also, there's the like, yeah, I need to be on medication because I have like I'm clinically depressed from the relationship I'm in, and I'm trying to get out of it. I mean, there's just so many things that, and the you're not going to get any money and I'm going to take your kids are just huge.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to lose the house. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's so many things like that. If I leave the house, then I'll lose my rights to the house.
Right.
I mean, I won't get any money from
I won't get any money. It's abandonment of property. That's not what that means.
No.
Right?
Like, yeah. I mean, if your name is on the house, you still get you're half
It's
of the house.
marital property. It's marital property, period. If it's marital property, it's marital property.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Ugh.
mean, so I mean, there's so many things like that they say and that they scare people to death.
That's
I
right.
mean, so you have to just, I always say, focus on focus on the facts.
Right.
Don't listen to what they're saying. They want to scare you. They want to scare you.
Right.
And so just don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. And let me tell you, this is a thing that I say all the time. You knew that they were a liar during the marriage. They're certainly not going to start telling you the truth during the divorce.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, come on.
Insanity. It's insanity to think that the person you're divorcing, who has been abusing you for years and lying to you for years, is going to be giving you correct legal advice.
It's going to be to your benefit during the divorce.
Right. Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, they're not on your side now. They weren't on your side during the marriage. They're certainly not on your side during the divorce.
Right. Exactly. And it's, but it's so hard because of the gaslighting to separate, because their quote, their truth has been the truth for all these years. It's hard to sort of put that boundary in place in your mind to understand that, like, oh no, what they have not been telling me the truth. They will not tell me the truth. Their truth is not truth. And so it feels subversive and it feels scary to like go and like have a consultation with an attorney behind their back. Like, yeah, it is subversive and scary. And it's also necessary.